Hello, AnimeCons TV viewers. Welcome to the 2020 Year in Review episode. Yes, it was a terrible year thanks to coronavirus, but somehow your hosts have managed to look back on a year that wasn't. Enjoy this episode, and Merry Christmas.
Welcome back to AnimeCons TV. My name is Doug Wilder, and I'm joined by the rest of our crew. Say hello, crew.
Hi.
Hi, crew.
Hi, crew.
Hello there.
So 2020 was a weird year for conventions. Weird year, I don't know. I've apparently lost the ability to speak because I haven't done enough episodes. But we're just going to talk about our stats this year for con experiences and things that we've been doing. So, did anybody do any new conventions this year?
I did. I totally did.
What?
I went to an in-person convention I had never gone to before. Technically. When I was in Los Angeles for Gallifrey 1, at the hotel I was staying at next door, they had Ortcon, which is a gaming convention. It's like, all right, I'm done with this con for the day. Oh, let me check this out. And I walked through. But it looked like a fun event, but I was just busy at the other con next door. So yeah. I did support vendors. I bought some dice. I bought some healing potions. So,
there you go.
But I haven't been able to use them.
Now's the time to use healing potions.
Yeah. But yeah, one new live in-person convention, if it counts, and then one new virtual convention.
I'll talk about the one new convention I did because it was virtual. I did the Anime Lockdown Con, which was basically a fan-created first virtual con. That was basically on Discord and a few other channels, but it was all fans making it basically a very skeleton crew running themselves ragged to make it happen and just kind of help fan morale a lot. And there was a really fun stuff in a lot of their Discord channels of people just having fun comments like, oh, the elevator's broken again, someone threw up in the lobby, and it's all online, so it's just getting the convention spirit again, and that was really fun to see. So what was the virtual con you did?
I was invited to participate in Project Anime, which is normally an in-person event held just before Anime Expo where convention organizers meet and discuss different convention organizing topics. And they'll have some industry representatives there, some people from different businesses, maybe a registration vendor, and so on. Just talking about ways to improve your conventions and, share information between conventions. And so this was Project Anime World, and it was done virtually. And not having a live one to compare it to, I'm not sure how it compares. But for a virtual event where they could have had anybody from anywhere in the world, it seemed very limiting. Like, they didn't have convention representatives from all over the country. One panel I watched, it had 4 people from MagFest and then somebody from another event. And instead of differing views, it seemed very, very focused on one thing. And that was just one panel like that. There were a few that had multiple people from one particular thing, which seemed odd when they could have just, invite the world. So, and I left all that comment in my feedback form. So hopefully they can improve it next year.
Okay, so that's new conventions. How many, what did people do for total conventions this year?
One convention.
I did a whopping 3 counting Anime Lockdown.
Well, I did 1.5 plus the virtual, so that's...
Yeah.
I feel like I did 1.05 conventions because I did Untitled in person, which was right before things got crazy. And then I went to a single panel for virtual DragonCon. So,
yeah, all my cons were virtual this year.
Yeah, I went to 2. So I went to KatsuCon, and PAXI's was the week or 2 weeks after. And PAX East, I think, was like the last, like, definitely last big convention, I'm pretty sure. But one of the last few conventions. So they will get those two in. Actually, given 3. There's a con I used to go in January that I don't go to anymore. So it almost was 3. And I went to one virtual panel. I forget what convention it was associated with, but it was a virtual panel with Colleen Atwood, who is a huge name in costuming out in Hollywood. She's worked with Tim Burton a lot, and I'm sure all our viewers have seen her stuff. So that was like the type of panel I would wait all day in line to go to. So it was nice to. Sorry. So it was nice to see that panel. I am a stalker. Kevin, go away.
Kevin can't wait.
Okay.
Sorry, do you want me to do that again? No, leave it in.
Leave it in.
Just leave it in. That's what every podcast says.
Okay. So all of us normally go to a bunch of conventions every year. But I'm kind of curious, when was the last time any of us kind of attended this few conventions? Pat, why don't you start?
The first year I started going to anime conventions was 2000, and I went with Liz to Anime Expo 2000 in Anaheim, and that got me hooked on anime conventions. I came home and looked up when the next ones were, but it was too soon to go to any others and make plans. So 2000, I only went to one con. 2001, everything went to hell, and I started going tons of cons a year. But so yeah, 2000 was the last time I haven't gone to this many cons.
I only went to one in 2003, Anime Boston. In 2004, I only went to 2, which was Anime Boston and Ortcon. And then after that, I started going to like at least 5 until I slowed down in recent years.
Yeah, I think 2005, which was Anime Boston, was the last time I only went to one. And I only went for one day because I'd never been to an anime con before. I had no idea if I was going to like it, though I still cosplayed. And I dragged one of my college friends and put her in a costume that she didn't know what she was. But she was like, cool, fine. So we did it. And I had such a good time that the next year I was like all in. I did all of them. So
yeah, mine's similar. The last time I went to where it was just one convention was 2006, and it was Anime Boston. And then 2 years before that, I went to Otakon, and that was my first convention and my only convention that year. And then 2007 was when it started to. Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're talking cons attended in general, and my virtual conventions, the last time I only did 3 was 2007, which was the first year I was out of college, had a real job, and I went to my usual Anime Boston and Otakon and did one other convention. But if you're talking not in person, since I didn't do any in-person conventions, the last time I didn't go to a single in-person convention was 2000, because my first convention was Otakon 2001. So 20 years, it's kind of scary for me.
Yep, I'm right there with you.
So
what have I done with my life? No.
Excellent things, that's what.
Well, for like 11 years you've been doing a podcast, so there's that.
Holy crap, it's 11 years.
Wow.
No, this is the 12th. This is season 12, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my
I've
God.
lost count. Oh my God.
And you guys still put up with me.
Oh, you're still here?
Mm-hmm.
It's over.
Apparently, he's the only one here.
Yeah, that's true.
2020 was his year to dominate the statistics.
We started the first 6 episodes or so. We didn't have Doug, and so he's done the last 6, just leaving it out.
I've caught up.
Now, see, does it count in the first episode? I wasn't in it at all, but I hit your head with a microphone.
Does that make you a sound engineer or a Foley artist?
A little bit of both.
I haven't actually counted, but I do think you're in the most episodes, Doug.
Oh, geez.
I would believe that.
Me too.
So, Shiva, you mentioned that even at your first convention you cosplayed. Did anybody get to cosplay this year or make a new costume? And if so, did you have a favorite one?
I cosplayed one costume that I didn't make and I'd worn before, and I didn't make anything new. I know. I've been still doing creatives. I sewed like 100 and something masks back in April. So I've been sewing. I've been doing like furniture flips, and I've been doing learning how to do hand lettering, and so I've been keeping busy with stuff I like to do, just not costumes.
I feel like a ton of costumes because I made 3 brand new costumes this year, but I made them all for KatsuCon when we still were going to conventions. So I think if I hadn't pushed through and done all of those then, it made me even more happy that I finished them all because I haven't done anything since then. But my favorite one I did was I did Robin from Witch Hunter Robin, which is something I'd wanted to do way back in 2006. I didn't sew very well, and I had no idea how to do it, and I'd forgotten about it. And then was looking for a comfortable, warm costume to wear for Katsu, and I found the fabric for it, and I'm like, I am making Witch Hunter Robin. And the best thing about wearing it, not only did it come out great, and I love it, and it's like one of my favorite costumes now, but I met every person at KatsuCon who was like 30 and over because they knew it.
And I didn't make a costume for myself, but I did assemble a Halloween costume for my son. And he was Marty McFly for Halloween. So, I mean, the only costume I wore was I wore masks every time I went out. So,
I didn't make a new costume, but I wore one of my old ones in a pretty epic way. As the pandemic, like as we were realizing how big it was and stuff, I was in a trip to Norway with a couple 501st members, going to Finse, where they shot Echo Base and everything for Empire Strikes Back. So I got old costumes, new amazing photos. So that's by default my favorite costume. Though it was weird to realize that my other 501st costume, my Biker Scout, one of my all-time favorite one, the reason I joined the Legion, I did not wear it all in 2020, and that feels so weird because I've done over 100 events with that costume.
it's right behind you.
Wow. That's the old one.
No, I revamped a bunch of my old ones here and there. Dry, I added new parts to it, or just remade parts because now I can sew. That was my other costumes. I made a new one, was Amon, to go with Shiva's Witch Hunter, and still haven't finished my armor pieces. I keep getting closer every year, but then something happens.
For Anubis?
For Anubis, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That would have probably finished by Anime Boston if we'd had Anime Boston.
it was on the docket, but
Yeah.
I decided to do other construction things.
Yeah.
And I also have a new toy. I can 3D print.
Ooh, fun. I do want to shout out Elizabeth. You mentioned doing other creative things. I didn't build any new costumes, but I built so much Gunpla this year. So much Gunpla.
It's over your other shoulder.
No, those are Power Rangers. Come on, jeez. This is the Gunpla. Come on, learn your giant robots. Anyway, going back to stuff. So we did get some convention moments, even if we only got limited ones. Did you guys have a favorite convention moment despite the year? Anything that stands out to you that was really nice? Pat, go ahead.
Well, the only convention I really attended in person was Gallifrey 1. So my favorite moments from there, they had Christopher Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor, as the guest. And this guy, he hasn't made many convention appearances up until a few years ago when he started going to like the Informa and the Fan Expo conventions, the really big cookie cutter ones put on by corporations. And so, he'd go and do photographs and sign autographs and the whole, the whole thing. But then they brought him to Gallifrey 1, which is a convention focused on Doctor Who. And he commented during one of his panels that I forget the exact quote, but he indicated that he didn't realize that the Doctor Who fandom would be so kind to him. And he really seemed to appreciate everybody that enjoyed seeing him and went to all his panels and asked interesting questions. And it only made me imagine what kind of treatment he got at these other conventions. And so I'm glad he was able to see a good side of the fandom. And it was great to be able to see him in an environment like that.
Yeah, he's going to be doing a new audio book of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and he wasn't going to do anything like that, and then he went to Gallifrey, and now he seems more open to being part of the Doctor Who community.
Yeah,
and he talked at his panel about the 50th, and from what he said, he really didn't seem comfortable to be in that production, and I get it now, because he didn't have a good time on set with everybody, but he seems to be open. So, if there's a 60th, maybe he'd be into it. So we'll see.
Okay. Elizabeth, you have one?
Yeah, actually, I already mentioned the Colleen Atwood panel. So one of my other favorite convention moments was, so this was the first year in like forever that I actually pre-registered for Dragon Con and not like did it a week before or at the convention. And they actually, I'm covering up the name here. They actually sent out badges with, the sticker that is the name and your handle, whatever you want to put on it. So we still got Dragon Con badges for this year, and they gave us masks. And the lanyards were for the Mandalorian, which was pretty cool too. So that was really cool to like get in the mail. Trying to remember when they came in the mail, but it was really awesome to get that, and I really like that they did that. That was really nice of them.
Sketch and Shiva, how about you guys?
Well, I don't really have too many moments. I agree with you, Elizabeth, though. It was really cool to get the Dragon Con badges in the mail. I thought that was a nice touch. They didn't have to do that, and that was really nice. I did go, I will say though, I did enjoy the one panel I went to for virtual Dragon Con. I really liked. I just happened to log onto it because I wasn't planning ahead. And I was like, oh, cool. The Star Trek Voyager cast is having a group chat. And I've met the entire TNG cast. I've met at various conventions and gotten their autographs and stuff and heard them talk, but I've never heard, other than Garrett Wang, who runs the Trek track at Dragon Con, so I've seen him in all sorts of things. I've never really heard the rest of them talk or met them or know what they're like or their stories or whatever. So I just logged in for the heck of it. And I think not only did I enjoy it, they were funny, and I really, really thought it was fun to go, but it was kind of a very interesting experience going to a panel in my pajamas while my kid was sleeping with like a cup of coffee and like basically having a Zoom call with them actors I loved when I was in middle school. And I mean, it was just kind of an interesting experience. I wouldn't trade a live convention experience for it by a long shot, but it was just different and kind of fun. And it was the first time I did that. And they were even doing like breakout sessions, one-on-ones with fans afterwards. You could log in and ask them questions like yourself, and they would do like 5 minutes, 15 minutes with like individual people, which I just thought was really kind of cool that they were still doing meet and greets even virtually. So, and I know some people that I follow a lot of Trek fans on Tumblr, and people were recording their one-on-one sessions where they would ask questions and get answers and then post them on Tumblr. So it was fun to see like what people had to say and like what their responses were, and a lot of them are really funny. And so it was just a very different convention experience. But also, what other time would you get to know like what your fellow attendees like chatted about like on a meet and greet with one of the actors? So it was almost like we got to all experience it together, which was kind of cool.
I'm going with more of a kind of like an awe moment. It's just like my favorite was just going to Quetzalcon, we always drive, and it's become like kind of like a traditional ritual thing. And it was just nice because like it's so smooth going now. We're so used to doing it that it's kind of just like, oh, it's part of that. And
Part of our whole convention
the whole
experience
convention
is our
experience
road trip.
is
Yeah.
our road trip. So it was nice. Went down and
Yeah,
everything
with
went
the squad.
smoothly and hung out with the squad before everything, shut down.
Actually, I'm kind of glad. No, it's actually fun to put that in context because we always, except for the year there was a blizzard and I was horrible to drive with because I was a wreck. We always have a good time, but I think what made it special was that was the last time we like hung out with friends in person live. I mean, really, if you think about it, that was the last time because literally like 2 weeks later we were like shut down. So it was nice that we had that because we really haven't had human contact with people.
You're real over there, right?
Right?
Are you real? Can I poke you?
So going back to kind of the virtual events and stuff, I'll go with my favorite moment was, and this was kind of a really humbling thing for me, was I got asked to present one panel at the Ortcon online, and that's that was very humbling when you figure how much more limited that is between everything else and how much they have to select. And they asked me to do my Gundam merch panel, which I was glad to do. But the best moment of that was looking at Twitter right after I did it and seeing someone, not a friend, not anyone I knew, kind of quote part of my panel as like a highlight of their experience. And of course, this is me talking about a Gundam crotch and the underwear that's made to look like that area of a Gundam. And the person says, I actually pulled up the tweet, Gundam crotch is a magical phrase that I just heard spoken out loud. Thank you, Ortcon. And it was, for whatever reason, it makes me so happy that this one person who probably may not have gone to my panel at Ortcon because there's so many other things to do, but because it was virtual and I got to be one of the lucky people to present, they actually tuned in and really, I left them enough of an impression that they actually wanted to tweet about that, and that really made it special for me because it's like, oh, I'm reaching people that really appreciate it, because this was the only time I really got to put in a lot of work. And as you guys know, paneling is something that I love to do at conventions, and being able to still do it despite everything really meant the world to me.
Gundam crotch.
Gundam crotch, yep.
Hashtag Gundam crotch. It's a thing now.
I'm just going to hashtag that for no reason.
Yeah. And now to bring it down, let's talk about our least favorite convention moments, because we're all too happy now. So,
well, my least favorite is not being able to finish a costume yet again. But it also came into the fact that like we had to deal with COVID and then not have anywhere to bring it anywhere. So it was just one of those things. It's just like, nope, it's not a priority.
I don't think I've had enough convention moments, period, to have a bad one, which I guess is a good thing. If I'd had a really bad experience at the one convention I got to go to, that would be pretty sad. But I guess if I had to pick something, it would be going to Quetzalcon, and especially in like hindsight, was really weird because we knew COVID exists. It wasn't like we were like, oh, it's not, we didn't know at all. Like, it's not like it was, we knew something enough. We knew enough that I remember we all stood in the hotel room. We're like, okay, we're not touching anybody. We have hand sanitizer in the room. Don't touch the escalator. I remember several times being on an escalator, just be like, oh, there's no reason I need to touch that. Like it was like the start. It was the start of how now we're all paranoid about everything and like, don't touch things. And it was like, no, I'm not going to touch that escalator railing. And no, I'm not going to give you a high five instead of a hug. Let's just like wave across I don't know you, thank you for liking my costume from afar. And it's interesting that there was this weird, like dark cloud that we didn't know how dark it was kind of hovering over the thing, waiting to descend. And, but at the same time, I feel like we were really lucky. Like Quetzalcon could have been the Biogen conference and we managed, I don't think anything came out of it. So we were lucky.
That's interesting because I was at Gallifrey 1 that same weekend, but there was no concern for anything Maybe it's just Los Angeles versus DC, or maybe it's a Doctor Who convention where people are coming over from Britain. But
maybe I should rephrase. It wasn't the convention atmosphere that felt that way. We as a friend group were already talking that way, right? Like I remember, like that was kind of like our decision as a squad, I guess, was like, we're gonna avoid, there's this weird thing, we don't think it's there, but let's like avoid as much human contact with strangers as possible.
Well, it's also in Quetzalcon, famously when we first started going as a squad, one of us would always get sick, and then the blizzard year we all got sick.
So like H1N1 sick, and 2 people at Quetzalcon like died
that year. So we already had kind of like a mental thing about that place being really good at spreading stuff. So
but I had flown out to California for California 1. I wasn't too concerned any more than normal about germs on the plane or at the convention. Friends I was with, it was all fine. But I do remember it was about 2 weeks later when I went down to Florida with my family to see my parents. On the way home, which was March 7th, we were pretty cautious. It's like, okay, don't let him touch all the airline seats. We got to wipe everything down. We were really careful on that flight back. So
it's weird thinking now about how like the slow mental escalation happened. Like,
yeah. So the interest, for which one of you mentioned Biogen? Biogen was the same weekend in Boston as PAX East, and I've checked every so often to see if there was any kind of spread at PAX East, because I was there Thursday, Friday, and I never found anything. But they recently said like they've traced a lot of cases back to Biogen, and that one was only like, I want to say like 1,000 people, maybe not even. Whereas PAX has like a bazillion people. They don't release their actual numbers, so I don't know, but it's a lot of people. And so that was, I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks after Katsu. Could have been the week after. I don't know. It was 80 years ago. But there were some people wearing masks. There was hand sanitizer everywhere. I know a couple vendors dropped out. And I know so we did say Friday, even though we weren't going Saturday, we stayed at the hotel Friday and Saturday. And Saturday we made sure to go to Chinatown, because that was at the time where like people were shutting Chinatown. So like that stuff was going on. And then I remember that closed, and then that weekend ended. And then the next big thing was everyone was looking at Emerald City Comic-Con to see what they were going to do, especially because Seattle was like the Washington State was like the first big place where it came out. So yeah, it was interesting after the fact to hear about the Biogen thing, being like, wait, what?
Not like 300,000 cases came out or traced to that.
Yeah, I just saw that like the other day.
So you're saying the nerds at PAX East were cleaner and did a better job washing their hands than the people at a biotech conference?
I'm not saying that, maybe.
I feel like their hands. The rest of them is fair game.
So I'll just go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I still if you haven't done your least favorite moment, you can go. I don't remember if you did.
I have not done mine.
Okay.
But Pat, you go first.
Mine is just quick because there wasn't that much to pick from. I'm still annoyed that Gallifrey 1 doesn't let people take video in panels and events. For an event that sells out every year, I mean, why are they concerned? It's not like people are going to post the video and, oh, now I don't have to go to the con. Let people take video. Come on. And you know what? It was the last year. I'm not going back to Gallifrey 1. It doesn't change every year. I've seen enough. I'm not going back. So I recorded some video. I don't care.
Breaking all the rules.
Yeah.
Stupid rule.
Rebel.
So mine was for a convention that didn't even happen. Was my staff position on Anime Boston this year was my first year. This was my first year in my new role as the featured panelist coordinator, which was something I was really happy to do, and was having a lot of fun recruiting people, finding out these different talent, coordinating everything, and I think I was still traveling when the decision was coming down that Anime Boston was going to be canceled, and sitting down, drafting that email to all the featured panelists that I've been working with and talking to, and having to tell them, hey, and if it's not announced yet, but it will be shortly, Anime Boston 2020 is going to be canceled. Thank you for everything. We'll be in touch. And writing that email was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do for staffing the convention. And it was, I mean, Pat, you're involved with Anime Boston as well. You helped found it. And I've been on staff since the beginning. And this con means so much to me. And having to write that, my heart broke a lot. And silver lining is I got a lot of positive responses, like, we understand, you guys are making the right call. Please keep in touch for the future. And it was really nice. But man, finding the words out and finally hitting that send button, whew, that was tough. Need a drink. But,
Well, hopefully you saved a copy of that email, because things aren't looking good.
Yeah.
So mine was easy to pick. So mine is that fact that I'm dating someone now who is into this kind of stuff and wanted to go to more conventions and wanted to get into cosplay, and nope, we got in 2 both PAXs, so we weren't really cosplaying. PAX Unplugged and then PAX East. All these plans to add our Dragon Con costumes plans. Nope.
Just gives you more time to perfect them before the next con, right? You're gonna have so many costumes ready.
No, probably not.
You don't get it. You make the costume the weeks before you go. Don't do any 4-year thing.
Yeah.
Going on the plane.
Yeah. Also, started a D&D campaign end of February too. So that died pretty quickly. But oh well.
So, normally we have our Better Luck Next Year award for the con that should fix things or something like that. And yeah, as you guys got to talk so we can see it.
Oh, that will make noise.
Yeah. So I think we could just say every con from mid-March through December, Better Luck Next Year. And maybe beyond that, let's see. But I think trying to pick one this year would be a little tough.
Yeah, unless that con actually happened, because you're dead to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But did anybody have a favorite convention for this year, despite everything? If you guys want to skip, you can. But
I mean, I guess by default, Gallifrey won because it's the only one I went to in person. But I'm not going back next year because I'm just tired of it.
Yeah.
So,
PAX East was a blast. I liked going, especially Thursday because it doesn't sell out, and then Friday, so it's not the craziness at Saturday. So I was able to check out a lot of stuff. Went to some cool panels. Yeah, PAX East was a lot of fun.
I don't feel like.
I'm going to actually give it a shout out to Anime Lockdown Con again, just because they put that together so well. They got the right spirit behind it. They really wanted to make this fun, and there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into that, and both the people organizing it and kind of the panelists that found, like, hey, I can throw this panel in last minute, give you some content. It really came back to kind of the fan spirit of the convention. Why conventions happen. So that kind of made it my favorite one. And I know Otakon is often top of my list for this year, but I think Anime Lockdown, because it was a unique one, it was a new one, and they found a lot of the little special things really made it. I think the only thing I would have told them to change is afterwards, more of the virtual cons still made print at home badges, and I kind of wish they had done that. But that would be my favorite. So now we're going to go into kind of more of just a general discussion about conventions this year and everything. So I just have kind of a couple of questions for you guys, things we want to go. First question, just kind of to the group. Knowing what we know now, you guys think you would have still gone to some of the earlier cons or maybe made one more of a priority or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll go first. Not really. It's kind of, I mean, us being all up in New England, it's hard to travel that time of year. It's not all the cons up in that area that time of year. Like, maybe the only one I would have tried to go to because I do want to check it out once is MagFest. But you know, I got into before everything shut down. So not really. I think it would have been kind of tricky for me because my front of my ear is kind of there aren't as many options as other places.
Yeah, I think I got to everything I wanted to. There's really nothing else. It's like, oh, I wish I made time to get to that. Yeah, I got to stuff. I'm pretty happy with where it left off. I just wish I could have done more this year.
Yeah, same here. I don't think we typically don't go to anything earlier than Quetzalcon just because after Christmas, it's just too crazy to like prepare to go to a convention sooner than that. Like, I feel like just
we
for
can't
us,
prepare during getting ready for Christmas, you know, to do anything like in January.
I feel like just our whole fall is just really busy. Yeah. And so I need like January to like, usually right after New Year's is when we're like Katsu crunch. So, I'm glad we got that one in. I feel like, as I kind of mentioned before, we got lucky that we got that in before things got bad and nobody got sick or anything. And I feel like by the time we were back from that, it was already like, again, like a cloud over everything. And we kind of knew. And I was already like wiping down everything at my office before. And by like probably the first week of March, I was telling everybody in my team to stay home.
Yeah, you spearheaded your company.
Yeah, before my company like forced everybody to work from home, I like forced my team to work from home because I didn't want to go into the office. I was freaked out. So yeah, I don't think, I mean, I wish things were different and this didn't happen and we got to go to all the stuff. We got to go to Sad, we didn't get to judge the Masquerade at Anime Boston or go or any of that. But yeah.
This is one I've wrestled with a lot because I didn't do Quetzalcon. I haven't done it for several years, and it's one I've thought about. And it would have been the only con I could have done. And on one hand, you know, I would have liked to have gone with you guys, because especially thinking about like this would have been the last time I would have been able to really hang out with most of my friends in person for a while without like really heavy concerns. But that was also between two major events. I was lucky enough to get two big trips. One that I'd been on my bucket list for almost 15 years, and got to do that. And I was thinking about this, like, well, if I was planning another convention, those two experiences would have been shortchanged by having to save a little bit of money for the convention or things like that. So it's weird to say, but there's life beyond the convention. Yeah, it was still being very nerdy for both of those trips, but I think if I think about it, I think I wanted those experiences more, and I wouldn't have wanted to shortchange that. But I think the only thing I really missed was the social aspect, which thankfully we've all gotten better about video conferencing like this, or things like just keeping in touch better. So that's about it. But the next question for you, everybody, is: did you guys notice any interesting trends for conventions this year besides all of them canceling?
Well, I think because they all canceled, right? What was interesting for me is watching how they chose to handle it, right? I think it spoke a lot to how they're managed, how their marketing communication team functions, how well their internal staff communicates. I feel like unless you work for a convention or know people that work in the upper levels of a convention, nobody really knows what goes on behind the scenes. But I think it was kind of, especially for those of us that know kind of how conventions work, even if not the specific ones we're talking about, it was pretty easy to kind of read between the lines and see how chaotic or how together or how coordinated everybody was in it, and how they handled their messaging and how they decided to make those major and probably very difficult decisions where people were caught between a rock and a hard place, and those that were just kind of like heels in, we're doing this, we carry on no matter what. It was just very like sociologically fascinating for me.
Yeah, you know, updating fancons.com became very difficult this year because instead of just posting a convention, updating the guest list, and move on to the next con, I had to post the convention, update the guest list, and then the convention's canceled, and they announced new dates a few months later, and then that's canceled. They announced new, so I have to do extra work because they're listing multiple times, and so there were a bunch of conventions that just canceled this year and maybe next year. Then there were some that just moved it out 2 months and moved it out another 2 months and moved it out. And so that was pretty annoying. I felt like after a certain point, they'd get the picture and just cancel, but they kept doing it. I did notice a trend where the general public really doesn't understand force majeure at all. And that's where in a contract, it says, if there's a pandemic, and or some event and you can't hold the convention, you're not at fault. You don't have to pay cancellation fees. And so people didn't understand, why aren't these conventions canceling? Well, you have to wait for the state to say you can't hold the convention. Then they don't have to pay. If they cancel it first, they have to pay, even if the state comes back later and says, but we did whole episodes on this. Mm-hmm. But yeah. But even convention organizers, I saw them this fall saying, oh, this convention's still scheduled for October, November, whenever it was. Why haven't they canceled yet? It's like, guys, you know why they haven't canceled. What are you doing? People that know better would forget. So just, you know, conventions, you know, they cancel, they don't. Let them do their thing. Some of them, I saw announcements where some of them are like, oh, we're doing everything, you know, we haven't missed a year yet because of snow or whatever. We're going to have this one. They were dead set to have the convention until the government shut them down. It's like, okay, guys, that's not cool. And other ones, it's like, you know, they don't want to hold it, but they have to wait. So,
I'd be interested in trends going forward of where conventions start to start up again, like in what. Not only in what states, but also like in which countries that either there are some countries where it is safe for them to open, or there's some countries and states where it's not okay for them to open, but they do anyway, or their state thinks it's okay, but it's probably not. So I'd be really interested to see where they start popping up first. Maybe also it's going to be interesting to see who the first one is, the first big one is to be like, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Because it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to be like, you go. No, you go. I'm not going. You go. And I think that's what the summer is going to be like. I think like the summer with, because you got Anime Expo usually is 4th of July weekend. And then Ortcon's in there somewhere, and then Dragon Con and San Diego Comic Con. So you got a lot of big events in the summer, and it's gonna be interesting to see which one goes first and how it goes.
It's if I had to guess, if we're talking U.S. conventions, it would be something in a red state.
That's why I keep thinking Dragon Con, because they're
big,
not
red anymore,
right? Like they're big enough that they probably don't need, like they probably can afford to take the financial risk of scheduling it, right? They're also in Georgia, which I think if Atlanta themselves hadn't intervened, the state would have been like, have it, you know? And I think that, you know, between those two things, I see them going for it. That, and plus Labor Day weekend, I feel like it's going to be late enough that if the vaccine's available to the general public, they're going to feel like they can have it, whether people actually have gotten it, especially of the age group of people who are going to go, and whether I would feel safe going is a whole separate, I probably would not, we'd have to see, but I feel like they're going to pull the Band-Aid first.
But man, I would feel so safe going to a convention in New Zealand or Australia right now.
Yeah.
There.
They probably won't let them
Paradise.
I don't know if they'll let us in.
Yeah, they won't. There are Australians who can't get back to Australia. Like tens of thousands of them. They're stranded in wherever they were.
The thing I was noticing is there's a lot of conventions that seem to be kind of, wrestling's not quite the right word, but trying to figure out what their identity is, what how their con is held, and what kind of the spirit of their convention is, and how that can be translated online. Some are very fan focused, some are very industry focused, some have a medium and things like that. And so you saw some of these conventions really trying to figure out what content they wanted to have if they had a virtual convention, and what content they said, okay, we're gonna wait for next year on this. So like I know Anime Expo, I did a couple of their virtual events, and that was very clearly focused on the industry, which is the nature of that convention anyway. But it seemed a lot more of promotion of stuff like that, and not as much fan generated content. And speaking of the fans and the con goers, what kind of lessons do you guys think con goers should take away from 2020?
Social practices, how you interact with people in a crowd. I mean, even if, vaccines good, no more cases, we seem to have it nipped in the bud. There's definitely going to be a social change out of all this.
That's actually a good point. I wonder if it would help. I mean, if you think about it, how many people, I mean, we have a phrase con plague for a reason, right? That doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic. And I wonder if any of the practices people have adopted, especially in areas where the practices are widely adopted, will continue post-pandemic. That might make conventions healthier in general, you know?
Yeah.
In a couple of years, we're going to see people high-fiving each other going up and down the escalator again.
Oh, of course. It's not going to last long. I don't think
years.
long term.
I'm sorry. I mean, next year, As soon as it's over, they'll,
I think if people could take away something from it, I feel like it's just a damn convention. Like, how all the shit that happened in 2020, right? Like, and I feel like this dissipated over the course of the years. Things got worse and worse, and people had to worry about much more serious problems that came out of this. But I remember around the time Anime Boston canceled, because that was probably one of the earlier big conventions to cancel, right? I mean, that was, it was the end of March. Was it the end of March this year, or beginning of April? Because it always moves around.
Yeah, it was right around then,
Right around
then.
then.
It was in April, but they canceled it, I think, in March.
Yeah,
Yep.
Boston was slammed, right? And I know that, you know, AB probably wanted to cancel it sooner than they were able to, right? And and so I think that, but I understood what was happening with the convention, but the fan reaction was gross. Like a lot of it was gross. There were some people like, I'm showing up at the Heinz anyway, and you can't stop me from having a convention, and I'll cough on everybody. I don't care if I'm sick. Nothing's going to stop me. I made my cosplay. And I'm like, y'all gross. You're all gross, right? Like, can we just take a step back and like, you can continue to go to conventions. This is not the most important thing that's happening in your life. Like, we know they're fun. We know this sucks. You had no idea at the time you were probably typing this, how much this year was going to suck for you, right? And I think that as the course of the year got worse, I know those people still exist, but I feel like that attitude really came down. I didn't see it as much. I feel like that idea of what's important and kind of where this fell on their list of priorities hopefully gained a little more perspective as things kind of happen.
Yeah, it was funny. I remember seeing that reaction, and then like everyone was waiting on Dragon Con, like, can you please just cancel? Like, we know there's stuff that you need to do contractually, but like, for God's sakes, we know it's not going to happen. Can you just make it not happen so we can all like relax about it? It's like everyone wanted it to not happen.
I think that's a good point. It's a difference in the March reaction to like the August, September reaction, right? It was like completely night and day, like from how dare you to what are you thinking to have this? So
No, I think I also noticed too on the social media friends who were very devastated in March. Well, like, I made like these conventions are like their big social outings, and they go to like several at a time. Started figuring out other ways to still do, like, let's say the cosplay hobby, or like even collaborate on stuff virtually and everything like that. That they also started like realize, what's it really worth in the end? It's just a year. Um, but I think it also helped probably a lot of people, once they eventually came to terms with it, to kind of grow as a convention goer anyway. So they're probably going to respect the cons they go to more often.
Right. Don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, and this was a really, or not really noticed, one thing I saw that really put it into perspective is I was talking with one friend who has been going to Oktoberfest in Germany for like 30 years. Like goes every year, has a blast. It's kind of their big thing, and it's very similar to kind of a convention experience. And he took a really good perspective on it, which was, well, it's canceled, so I haven't missed one. There just isn't one this year, and I was like, that is such a great way to look at it. Is I haven't missed it. Like I haven't missed a single Anime Boston. There just wasn't one in 2020, and it's such. I think slowly people are getting that attitude, and it's such a good positive way to look at it. And I think there is going to be a lot of people that, like you guys said, really respect the convention because they realize how much it means to them, and to have that gap is going to, really hit home. This is a special thing that it's not going to be always around.
Yeah, I didn't want a gap in my Anime Boston t-shirt collection, so I made my own Anime Boston 2020 shirt using some old artwork that I modified to put masks on.
I still laugh when I told, even on the forums of Anime Boston, like, 2020, the new 2002.
I have an Anime Boston 2002 shirt, yes. Even though the convention started in 2003.
You had to be there.
Yeah.
At that kitchen table in Newton.
Pretty much.
So how about lessons for con organizers? Anything you guys think they should think about or take away from this year?
Well, I think Dragon Con really, they were doing this just because they were thinking of it anyway, about doing the more virtual stuff, or just having the ability to, broadcast stuff more. Because at the convention, they have 3 channels in the hotel room, but like to get more people involved. So they started building the infrastructure. I think more conventions might think about investing in an infrastructure where they could broadcast their convention more and have it like a pay service or something like that for the weekend. I think we're going to see a lot of that happening, especially with the bigger conventions, if they foresee it. Because if anything, you still have a revenue if something happens. But if you invest in it now, you have even more content to get to more people.
Or you can attend things far away that you can't travel to in normal circumstances.
So I think a lot more in the digital age is going to start bringing out more virtual stuff. And it kind of will start paying for itself too, because like you're going to reach people who wouldn't travel all the way to your convention, who now can attend your convention in a way.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, at the same time, I don't think a convention should feel obligated to put on a virtual con, because there's so many cons every weekend, and we don't even need one virtual convention every weekend, but yet we've got so many that I don't even know how many there are. It's crazy. And they vary vastly in quality. And the lower quality ones tend to just bring everybody down, because you assume, oh, this next one's going to be just that crappy. And so, yeah, I don't think a convention should feel obligated to have virtual. And also, from what I've heard for attendance statistics, the virtual conventions, for everyone I've heard stats for, have been significantly lower than in-person attendance. Even though they can get people from anywhere in the world, it's just not as much interest.
We wonder, it's kind of, you have to ask the question, what do people go to a convention for, right? Is it the content, or is it the everything else around it, the traveling, the socialization aspect, the cosplay, all that stuff, right? I feel like if convention organizers could take something away with this, I kind of alluded to it in observing kind of how people manage their cancellation process, right? For me, I think that a lot of conventions are bad at messaging in general. Some are better than others. It depends on, a lot of conventions are volunteer run and people don't necessarily have the skill set needed to message things properly. But you could see with various conventions, some people clearly had a centralized plan of how we're going to communicate this effectively. Now, that doesn't mean that they canceled when people thought they should cancel or that there weren't things going on behind the scenes or whatever. But they had the right tone and they had a consistent message to attendees, right? And I think that, but you saw other ones where you had people going rogue and saying things and fighting with attendees online and start like banning people who said the con was should be canceled. And there was a lot of things that felt like whoever was in the hierarchy of convention management had completely lost control over the message, which I feel like was probably one of the important things to do in a situation like this, and probably something that should be done even in a normal year, right? That you have strong and consistent communication with the people that are attending. So I feel like if people feel like that wasn't handled well, that's probably a gap that organizers need to address. It's important. It's important for any business, really, but also for conventions.
Related to that, like I think just even not pandemic, but having consistent messages is read your contracts, see if you have weather clauses and things like that. If your venue doesn't require you to have insurance, you should still have insurance. I'm going to say that again. If you're a con organizer, you should have insurance. And I think it's not a bad idea because Shiva, you mentioned having strong, consistent messaging, having drafts of stuff or at least a skeleton ready to go just in case. If you're a convention that happens, say January, February, March in North America, you could have a blizzard cancel the convention and things like that, and you have to be ready for that to react to that. And I think prepping is important. You make these plans hoping that you'll never have to enact them, but you still have to make the plans. Okay, one of the second to last questions we got. What's something from in-person conventions that you guys found yourself missing, or you were kind of surprised that you missed this year? Elizabeth.
Yeah, so for me, it's not so much I think I did expect this. I miss walking around the artist alley and seeing all the amazing artwork that people come up with and trying not to buy everything that I like. I mean, I finally this year got a space where I can put up all the art that I've been buying over the past decade plus at conventions. Like I frame stuff. I'm like, holy crap, I bought this in like 2008 and earlier. And I don't know if I didn't really look for it, but I hope that there were conventions who I think I saw a couple places where they had like virtual artist alleys, or even if just having a list of who was going to be in their artist alley, or if it wasn't set yet, people could list themselves in the artist alley. And I saw some companies who are vendors or an artist alley put together their own artist alley lists. And so I hope that was out there, and I just didn't really look for it. But yeah, I definitely miss, because whenever I'm bored and I don't know what to do at a convention, I usually go to the artist alley and walk around again if it's not too crowded.
Yeah, for me, it was not only the artist alley, but the dealer's room. And it's, a lot of widely commercial goods, but there's always one or two booths that have the stuff that's super old or never going to really be listed online, or you can't really go browsing for it, and they're the ones that you have to visit the booth to find kind of that weird eclectic stuff. I'll give a shout out to one vendor I really like, Otaku Joe's. They have laser discs or old VHS tapes or old figures from a couple years ago that he's just bought up from Japan. And this is stuff you can't really search for. So it was always fun to just go browse and see what he has. And you'd always like, even if I'd always find something weird and neat, even if it wasn't something for me. Yeah, half the time I'd be like texting that one friend that I know that's a convention, like, "Hey, that weird 70s giant robot show that you love, they have a figure from it. Get here right now so you can get it before anyone else." And I miss the kind of the unexpected items. And again, Artist Alley is another one where you'd see, oh man, I can't believe someone did fan art of this thing, and being able to grab that. I miss that kind of browsing. And yeah, you can find these people online, but it's not the same experience of just walking around and seeing what you stumble into.
And for me, it's I miss the experience. I mean, I miss people, obviously, but every year we do these year in review, and we look back on our favorite moments, whether it's hanging out with Peter Capaldi or interviewing a Japanese guest or winning a best in show and a costume. There's been so many experiences in all of our convention histories, and that this year is just lost. There's stuff that would have happened in that alternate timeline, and we have no idea what amazing thing it would have been. There would have been something. It would have been like, oh wow, that was so cool. None of it happened, and it's just sad. And like for me, it's the first year since 2000 that I haven't been at a convention presenting something, whether it's a panel or hosting Anime Unscripted or some game show or just being the chairman up on stage. It's 20 years. Every year there's been at least once when I'm out front of everybody presenting something, and it just didn't happen this year, and I miss that. Hopefully next year, well, I guess it'll be 2022 maybe.
I think we'll start limping forward. Knock on wood.
I think things won't feel normal probably
No.
till 2022.
That feeling of the things, like I was thinking about this, is some of these conventions that I've been going to for so long, or I've had a core group of friends that I see every time. It's we say it half jokingly, but there's either a group of staff if you were working at a convention, or that group of friends you really only get together at that one convention. And we joke, but it's the family reunion, and realizing I won't see some of those people at all this year because we don't get to the handful of conventions. It's tough. And like, I mean, I still talk to them online. I have friends that I do, weekly Discord calls with, or things like that, or we, shout at each other on Twitter with our nerdy hot takes. But it's not the same of, sitting down and talking with them. I had this realization a couple of weeks ago where it's just like, man, I wish we were in somebody's hotel room right now. Each of us have our drink of choice in hand and just talking about whatever nerdy topic we wanted to go through. And just...
Yeah, we should have been doing this in person.
Yes. We didn't even get to do this in person this year.
Yeah.
Even after we're all back on the East Coast, finally. But we're talking about, when we want to get back and everything. I'm just going to go around. I'll start with you, Sketch and Shiva. What's the first in-person con you think you'll be able to return to?
If I'm being really honest, I think Anime Boston 2022.
Okay.
I'm hoping for Dragon Con, but we'll see how it goes.
How about you, Elizabeth?
I'm also hoping for Dragon Con this year. I'm also kind of holding out for Fan Expo Boston, which is usually in August. That might be one where the vaccines are long enough that it would be held. It totally depends on how things are, but If not Dragon Con, God, I'm hoping for PAX Unplugged. I love PAX Unplugged. It's so much fun. I was really bummed not to go to that this year.
Yeah, I don't know if Dragon Con will probably happen because it's Georgia and reasons, but it's so crowded. I don't know if I would be comfortable there. I think I'm hoping that something in the fall, there'll be something I feel comfortable going to. Maybe that'll be like BakuretsuCon in Vermont, because Vermont has the lowest, they've got like the best track record. And I mean, the convention's really tiny, but after over a year and a half, fine, I'll go to BakuretsuCon. It's cheap. Let's just go. Come on, everybody. We're going.
Do they still give cookies? I'll go if there's
Yes. I think they still, I haven't been there since 2012, but I think it's the same hotel. So, but realistically, it's probably something in 2022, some in the spring, maybe Anime Boston 2022. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually had a dream 3 days ago that I was at a convention and I had a panic attack because everybody was everywhere. There was I literally woke up in a panic attack because I was at a con and it was awful. Like the idea of being around people scared the crap out of me, which is awful. But here we are.
And then you get tapped on the shoulder and it's Vic.
The worst con ever.
Elizabeth, you mentioned Fan Expo Boston. That's not every year, but several years that's always been the same weekend as Otakon, and that's kind of mine. That's the one I'm just where it falls. It could be. I want to say not a sure thing, but I'd say most likely to happen as like the first one, just from the timing. Obviously, it's the con I've been going to the longest. It means a lot to me, but I think just timing wise, that could be the very first one. But we'll see what happens. There's a couple in the fall. We're up in New England. I would not be disappointed if the first one I get to go back to is Granite State Comic Con, which is such a small little con, but it doesn't need to be too big. It's perfect. And it's low key, and I would be okay just kind of dipping a toe back in before jumping back in. So I think that would be a good one. But if I had to guess, I think the first one that I'll be able to go to will be Otakon. And again, this is just looking at kind of the timelines they've announced for vaccinations and stuff like that. And last question, do you guys think of anything else you wanted to talk about conventions this year, or anything you were thinking about?
So I'm pretty sure the pandemic and people being stuck at home contributed vastly to TikTok exploding. But goddamn, I would love to see some convention content on TikTok of people just being stupid and ridiculous at every convention out there. I feel like the TikTok content for cosplay conventions would be A+, and I wish it was happening. I'm kind of obsessed with TikTok. Sorry, I'm a millennial. I'm not supposed to be, but whatever. It's really funny.
I don't know how it works. I just watch the videos Elizabeth sends.
Yeah. Well, again, I text them to you.
Yeah, I don't need another social media platform. I can't keep up. I think that any convention organizers who've held their conventions during the pandemic have a stank on them now, saying, we don't care about other people. And they will for years to come. And any guests who went to those conventions, same thing. They're just shaking hands with people. They got a mask on, but they're shaking hands. They take the masks off. There's so many photos of guests being irresponsible at these cons. And a lot of convention organizers I've talked to are not going to book those people that have attended cons during the pandemic. So they're just shooting themselves in the foot and limiting their invitations for the future once everything opens up. So
the thing I was thinking about is every year there's one or two shows that are super popular, and it's like, what are all these people wearing this outfit, and it's like, oh, it's this new show. Like I always think of my first Otakon. What's with all these guys carrying crosses wrapped up in white and black straps? Because Trigun was the big thing that year, and everything like that. And there's always that one show that everybody is cosplaying that year. And because we really didn't have this year, we don't know what that would have been. Like we could maybe make some educated guesses. You know, it might have been Demon Slayer because that was starting to get big at the end of 2019. But we don't, you know, there's probably things that we never would have seen.
There would have been so many Baby Yodas.
So many Baby Yodas.
Yeah. Oh, Tiger King, yeah.
I
But
forgot
yeah,
that existed.
I forgot that was this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was way in the beginning. Schitt's Creek.
So many.
Show 'em us Schitt's Creek is like not like an anime con, but like a Dragon Con.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's going to be ones that just they never get their kind of 15 minutes of fame. And by the same token, A and B contests. There's always that one that this is the new show that everyone's making A and Bs to, and you know, without the contest, like sure people are still making A and Bs and putting them up, but it's not really happening in a contest because there's always that time you see, you know, oh, there's 5 A and Bs in this convention's A and B contest that are all this one show because it was the big hit. I will always think about, again, I keep bringing up Otakon 2001. Apparently, it had a good impact on me. How many Fully Cooley A and Bs I saw that year, and I was like, I had no idea what that show was, but I'm like, this looks cool. I need to check it out because so many people are making A and Bs to it.
I feel like I've gained a new, and not just me, but a new respect for what people will accomplish with a deadline, right? Because I think that we all, whether we're AMV makers or cosplayers or what have you, creatives, right? Unless we're crying the night before, we don't finish it. Like we just don't do it. Like, and I would argue not even just don't finish it, don't start it. Because if you think about it, we've all had 9-10 months now being stuck in our homes with nothing better to do. You'd think we'd be like, this is what we've always wanted. Nothing but time. Look at all the projects I'm going to finish. And we've, as a collective community, most of us have said we've done shit, right? Like, so I think that it's interesting how motivating it is to, like, it's not the same online to say, I want to show people on my social media platform, you know, what I've created. People want to see this stuff in person, right? They want to share their cosplay in person. They want to share their AMV in a contest. They want to share, and not having that motivating factor of having to get it done by a certain time and being able to share it really has kind of, you know, and I think there's also outside factors of the fact that this has been a difficult year emotionally and financially, and for so many people, that those things, and that people having to educate their children from home, and like there's a lot of other reasons for that. But I would say I do think a big driver, if you talk to a lot of people, isn't some of the, it's really just like, why? I have no motivation to do anything. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, it'll be interesting to see how pent up people's creative juices are when we can go to conventions again. That said, shout out to the fanfic writers. They are still pumping that shit out, and I have been reading it. Like, so
first, share some of that. Second, I would like to blame my lack of cosplay motivation on Animal Crossing, even though I haven't played it in like 3 months. You'd think, like, because I was furloughed for like 7 weeks, that, you know, well, I was making a ton of masks then, but even since then, nope, it was Animal Crossing all the time. Like, I think I ended up with almost 500 hours in Animal Crossing, which compared to other people is not that much. You know what kind of costume I can make with 400 hours? Like,
you like 400 costumes.
I wish. But yeah, I did spend a lot of time playing Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
I should get back to that.
Dad for furlough, and then had to go back into work and figure out how to juggle full-time dad and work and other big things we're working on right now. So it was just like, yeah, I'm gonna kind of take a year off in that regard.
Yeah.
I'll be very curious to see what people do for their different creative outlets. We've mentioned, instead of building costumes, I build model kits and stuff like that. If people found their different outlets and maybe they found a new passion because they've had time to learn it and stuff like that, maybe they've learned how to sew and now they'll become a cosplayer because they know they've had a chance to learn or things like that, or they've mastered another skill. And I mean, we shouldn't fault anyone who hasn't had the time or bandwidth to learn another skill, because this has been an exhausting year physically and mentally. But I think there's going to be people that kind of have surprised themselves with what they've gotten out of it in a weird way.
Might also be a good break for people who might not even realize they were burning out, right? Even of the hobby, not even just of other things, right? But a lot of people talk about going through stretches of like, maybe I'm not really into conventions anymore, right? Or maybe I'm not into cosplay as much as I was before. Or maybe I'm not into, whatever it is. And it's interesting to see what they feel like after it being forcibly removed.
That's something I hadn't thought about. I thought about the conventions that might not come back, but there may be attendees who don't come back. They're like, yeah, you know what? It's fine. I don't need to go to that con.
We could very well see both extremes of the people that realized how much it needs them and they need to get back and they're coming back even harder. And then there's the people that like, I don't miss it. And both of those are okay. I mean, I want everyone to have fun at a convention, but if you've moved on because you're good, that's okay. So I think with that, if no one has any other final thoughts, I want to thank Patrick.
I just want people to, go spend your Christmas gift certificates on Svet's new book, The Weird Books.
Woo!
Volume 1, Beware the Silent Woods, available now. First episode I've been on to promote it. It's good stuff. Check it out. Weird Books.
I miss going to the N Press booth and seeing Svet's work at cons. But so I want to thank Sketch, Shiva, Patrick, Elizabeth. Thank you guys all for joining us for this very, very different year in review for AnimeCons TV. I want to thank all our viewers. I know we haven't had a chance to do many episodes. We love you guys. We miss you guys. Keep the comments and feedback coming. Maybe Movie Phone Guy will give us a call. We'll be able to do a voicemail episode. Who knows? If you guys have any thoughts, don't forget to leave us a comment. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, the YouTube channels. Don't forget the good old-fashioned email, podcast@animecons.com.
.tv.
.tv, sorry. Well, that's it.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
762-233-7828.
Yeah.
I hope.
But we love you guys. We'll see you soon. Stay in touch. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
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 The end.
My line.